ربي يسر وعين يا كريم وافتح بالحق إنك أنت الفتاح العليم يا فتاح يا عليم افتح لنا فتحا قريبا يا فتاح يا عليم افتح لنا فتحا قريبا يا فتاح يا عليم افتح لنا فتحا قريبا. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to have a brief recap of last week's lesson, and then we're going to finish the life of Imam Shafi'i. Then we'll look at the author of the text we're going to be reading, inshallah. After that, we'll look at some of the merits of seeking knowledge, and then finally what type of knowledge is obligatory and why it is important to seek knowledge. So last week we spoke about the birth of the four madhabs, the four schools of Sunni jurisprudence. And we spoke about the life of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala wa radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. We mentioned what Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi said in his book A'lam al-Waqi'een, that knowledge spread through the ummah through three companions, primarily through three companions. The first was Ibn Mas'ud, the second Zayd bin Thabit, and the third Abdullah bin Umar, the son of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. May Allah be pleased with every single one of the companions. He then goes on to say, Ibn Jawzi, that Mecca, the people of Mecca took the knowledge from Ibn Abbas, and the people of Iraq took their knowledge from Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. So he said, and this gave birth to the two most prominent, or the two main schools of that generation, the school of Hijaz and the school of Iraq. We said the focus of the school of Hijaz was naql, scriptural text, hadith, and Quranic verses. That was their focus. And the focus of the people of Iraq, Ahl al-Ra'i, was rational proofs. And we said Shafi'i took from both of these two schools. He studied with Malik in Medina, and studied with Imam Muhammad, the son of Hassan al-Shaybani, in Iraq. He brought together between these two great schools. He was a muhaddith, he was a master of the Arabic language, and he put heavy emphasis on the science of logic. So we said Imam Shafi'i, when he was younger, he memorized the Quran at the age of 7, Muwatta, which was Imam Malik's book of hadith, compilation of hadith, at the age of 10, and he went to study with the Arab tribe of Hudayl. Later in Shafi'i's life, in his gatherings of knowledge, so Bedouins traditionally they didn't have a love for seeking ilm, like prophetic or sacred knowledge. They loved the Arabic language. So later on in Shafi'i's life, when Shafi'i would be giving his lessons in fiqh and usul and logic, Bedouins would come to his lessons. Bedouins usually they'd come to the city, they'd buy their salt, they'd go back to their tribe. So when the Bedouins came, people were confused. Why the students would say, why are you Bedouins here? You guys don't seek knowledge. And the Bedouins would say, we've come to listen to Shafi'i's Arabic. That's how much they loved the eloquence of his speech. He was a master of the Arabic language, radiyallahu anhu. Na'am. We said he sat with Malik in Medina. He was a student of Malik. Some will say that Shafi'i was always a Maliki, but his positions were finessing of the positions of Malik. In some of his early writings, he would say, "Hada qawl al-Ustadh." When he spoke of Malik, he would say, "This is the opinion of the teacher," referring to Imam Malik. Now, we said in Iraq he took from the great Imam Muhammad, the son of Hassan al-Shaybani, and he was very much the Hijazi in Iraq, like the Malik in exile. He would defend Malik's positions when he was in Iraq. And Imam al-Shaybani was older than Shafi'i, but despite this, Imam al-Shaybani considered Shafi'i his teacher. But Shafi'i had great adab and etiquette with Imam Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani, such that he would never dispute with him in public. He would never disagree or dispute and have an argument in public. And such is the debating discussion. It's part of our tradition, but provided it's done with the correct etiquette. A lot of the disputation you see in the public sphere, it's not. That's not the way people should be discussing and debating things. No. So Imam Shafi'i, he had famously two madhabs. The first madhab he authored in Iraq. When he was in Iraq, we said that Imam Shafi'i, one of his observations was that we have material, okay? We have hadith, we have Quran, but we don't yet have a theory of how to sort through this material. And that's where he learnt to do that in Iraq with those who have mastered logic and using rational proofs. So in Iraq, he wrote his first madhab. And some people will say that the Hanbalis came from the first madhab. Some will say the Hanbalis were born from the first madhab. The Hanabila would put less emphasis on things like qiyas and using rational proofs. We gave an example last week of how scholars can differ. We said the ayah in the Quran, وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوء. We said the word qur' here can mean two things linguistically. It can mean the menstrual cycle, or it can mean the period of purity between two menstrual cycles, linguistically. And the companions differed on this verse, we said, because it's a linguistic difference. Allah didn't use the word shahr. He didn't use the word month. He used the word qur', which can mean two different things. So difference of opinion is a logical necessity, and ayahs like this are an example of that. Another example why scholars differ is the science of qiyas, analogical reasoning. An example is the impermissibility of beer. The impermissibility of what? Of beer. So in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala speaks of khamr, right? The impurity of khamr. Now, khamr is grape juice that has fermented into wine. So beer does not come under khamr. Therefore, there's no hadith, there's no ayah that says beer is haram. MashaAllah. Do we then say we can? Of course not. How do we know that? Because of the science of qiyas. So qiyas says we have a fara', okay? We have a new issue that doesn't have a ruling. Okay? Beer is the example. And then we have the asl, which is khamr, wine. We have the fara', we have beer, and we have the asl, which is wine. Okay? And we have the ruling of the asl, which is what? Wine is haram. Why? Because it's muskir. It's intoxicating. It's intoxicating. So we say beer and wine. We don't know the hukum of beer. We know the hukum of wine. It's haram. It's impermissible. Why? Because it's intoxicating. Wine is also intoxicating. Therefore, beer is intoxicating. And that's what we call a very simple example of qiyas. And the scholars will say that most rulings actually come from qiyas, not from Quranic verses or prophetic sayings. It's in Egypt, it's in Iraq. He wrote his first madhab, we said, and he wrote the first version of the Risala. Imam Shafi'i then, he goes to, if I'm not mistaken, when he's 49, he goes to, I just want to mention one thing. Sorry, last week we made a mistake in the nasab of Imam Shafi'i, just to correct the nasab. So the Prophet ﷺ was Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abd Manaf, Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abd Muttalib bin Hashim bin Abd Manaf. Abd Manaf had 4 sons: Al-Muttalib, Hashim, Abd Shams, and Nawfal. And Shafi'i goes back to Al-Muttalib. The Prophet ﷺ goes back to Hashim. We made a mistake last week, just to correct that. So they meet in Abd Manaf. So Shafi'i, when he's 49, he goes to Egypt. And it seems the reason for this is because there are certain Mu'tazilite ideas. So the Mu'tazilites were they subjected fundamental aspects of our religion to rational interpretations. So a simple example is the Isra and Mi'raj. The Isra and Mi'raj, when Prophet ﷺ ascended to the heavens. The normative and orthodox and majority opinion is that this was with body and soul. With body and soul. It wasn't just a dream or a spiritual reality, it was with body and soul. And that's the majority opinion. The Mu'tazilites would say no, it's not rational, it's not feasible that it was with body, it was just with soul. The Mu'tazilites also propagated the idea that the Quran was created. So these ideas were being pushed. The idea of the creation of the Quran were being pushed, and Shafi'i wasn't interested basically. So Shafi'i and the governor of Egypt at the time didn't buy these ideas of the Mu'tazilites, and because of this, Shafi'i decides to go to Egypt. So he goes to Egypt when he's 49, and it's here he writes the second version of the Risala. And we said the Risala was a criticism of what was going on in society, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So he then, in his second stay in Egypt, he writes the second version of the Risala, and he develops his second madhab. So there's two madhabs. We said the first madhab, the Shafi'i wrote in Iraq. The second madhab he wrote in Egypt. Now the Shafi'is of this day, they follow the new madhab, except for, they say, 20 issues in which they follow the opinion of the old madhab. So Shafi'i differed with his teachers. He differed with Maliki on certain issues, or Imam Malik on certain issues. He differed with Imam Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani. And again, we said difference of opinion is, there's nothing wrong with a difference of opinion. The companions differed. Even the Masala of Isra and Mi'raj, the companions differed. Aisha said that he didn't see his Lord, and the other companion said he did. So different opinion is part of our tradition. So Shafi'i differed with Malik on certain issues, and he writes a book called Khilaf Malik, where he expresses his differences with Malik. But it's not an angry book. He doesn't criticize him directly. It's done with very good etiquette. The etiquette, knowing that Imam Malik was his teacher, however he differed with him on certain issues. Now he writes this book, and he spends a whole year praying istikhara every single night before he releases this book. Every night he prays istikhara to Allah Ta'ala, asking him and asking for guidance whether he should release this book, and then he does release the book. Again, the point being that a lot of what you see now in the world, on YouTube, in the public sphere, there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of bad adab, there's a lot of pointing fingers, there's a lot of, completely void of any prophetic etiquette. But if we look at the great scholars, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad Hanbal, these great scholars, they differed with each other, but with adab, with gentleness, and with prophetic etiquette. So Imam Shafi'i writes the second version of the Risala. We said the Risala was a criticism of what was going on, of the state of affairs. So Imam Shafi'i observed certain extremities in society. He observed extremities with the people of hadith. So they would take the hadith with the apparent meaning without kind of looking into what could be a deeper meaning, using qiyas to understand the context of that hadith, for example. He observed extremities with people who were more concerned with taking local precedence, so following public interest in a certain region. And also with those who took a rational approach. So what consists of a rational approach? What consists of a rational approach? A lot of those people who took that approach, it was very pragmatic, kind of laid back, utilitarian way of reaching certain rulings. And Imam Shafi'i wanted to basically tighten things up. Okay, he wanted to tighten things up. We have the material, he said, or he understood. We have the material, but we don't yet know how to sort through that material. He observed a decentered legal system, in which the material was there, but there was no theory to sort through that material and reach the correct, accurate rulings. And that is how, and this was his famous, what he's most famously known for is the science, the establishment of the science of usul al-fiqh. Now, so we finished now the life of Shafi'i, and we're going to do a very brief biography of the author of the text that we're going to be reading, The Essentials of Islam, al-Risala al-Jami'ah. It was authored by Ahmad, the son of Zayn al-Habashi. He was born in Hadramaut in 1069 Hijri, which coincides with 1659 in the Gregorian calendar. Like many students of knowledge, he would travel long distances. There was no buses and trains, there was no, Uber. They would either, if they were wealthy, they'd have a horse or a beast or a camel, and if they were poor, they would just walk. And it's amazing. So some of the Imam Nawawi and Imam Shafi'i, if you calculate the amount of pages they wrote in their books, right? Imam Nawawi and Imam al-Ghazali. If you look at how much they wrote in terms of pages, some scholars have calculated how much they'd have to write on a day-to-day basis. And some scholars said that in and around they have to write like 50, 60 pages a day from the day they were born in order to write all the books, author all the books they wrote in their life. So they had so little, yet they achieved so much. And now we have everything, internet, YouTube, pens, laptops, and we achieve so little. Allah blessed their time. He blessed their time, and our time is absent, void of blessing in many circumstances, so in many situations. So he travelled, Imam Ahmad bin Zayn Habshi, he travelled long distances to seek knowledge, Tarim, Say'un and other places in Hadramaut. He kept the company with the great Imam al-Haddad, with the great saint of Hadramaut, likewise a great scholar of Hadramaut. These were imams, like many imams, they were imams of the inward and of the outward. We have an intellectual dimension to our religion, we also have a spiritual. We have the inward and we have the outward. Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِن تَجْهَرْ بِالْقَوْلِ فَإِنَّهُ يَعْلَمَ السِّرَّ وَأَخْفَى. Okay, if you choose to proclaim something, make something public, say something out loud. If you choose to proclaim something, you should know that Allah knows what you conceal, or what is concealed, and that which is even more hidden. وَإِن تَجْهَرْ بِالْقَوْلِ فَإِنَّهُ يَعْلَمَ السِّرَّ وَأَخْفَى. If you choose to proclaim something, you should know that Allah knows what is concealed and that which is even more hidden. So in this ayah, there's the outward, tajhar, what you say or what you do, okay? But then there's the inward, asir, wa akhfa, and that which is even more hidden. So great imams, they weren't merely intellectual individuals. They were intellectual, they were also very spiritually balanced individuals. And this is the way of great scholars of our tradition. They brought together between the inward and the outward. There's a hadith narrated by Imam al-Tirmidhi on the authority of Umar bin Khattab, in which the Prophet ﷺ used to make a dua. He used to make a dua. He would say, Allahumma ja'al sarirati khayran min alaniyati. Make my, so sarira is referring to one's innermost state. The word sir in the Arabic language can mean secret, it can mean heart, thoughts. So he's saying, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma ja'al sarirati khayran min alaniyati. Make my inward state, my spiritual state, the state of my heart, more beautiful than my outward state. He's saying, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, make my inward state more beautiful than my outward state. My intentions, my etiquette with Allah inwardly, okay? Make my inward state more beautiful than my outward state. وَجَعَلْ عَلَانِيَتِ صَالِحًا. But make my outward state upright. So it's not merely having good intentions and that's enough. It's not merely doing things of action, that's enough. No, he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he wants his beautiful state to be more beautiful than his outward. But he wants his outward state likewise to be beautiful. Some of the merits of seeking knowledge, Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, هَلْ يَسْتَوِ الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Are those who know and those who don't know equal? If you look in the world, for example, if you look at in like a primary school, right, you don't see the 5-year-old giving the lesson and the teachers there sitting and listening. Okay, the teachers are teaching and the children are listening. In the workplace, for example, you don't see the one who works on the shop floor at Waitrose giving orders. That's what the managers do, because they have more knowledge, they have more understanding. So, and this is in the world. Often there are things we observe in the world that we don't recognize also our realities in our religion. A lot of us will, seek the advice of a medical professional, for example, if we're unwell, or if someone in our family is unwell. But when it comes to a religious ruling, mashallah, we just check Google, and you wouldn't go to Google if you needed a heart transplant or if you needed a prescription. And if you did, what would happen? So why is it we respect the world and the etiquette and the adab of the world, but we don't respect that when it comes to our religion? So the people of knowledge are not equal to those who don't know, and this doesn't mean they're better than them, of course, because we don't say the scholar is better than the student or the ignorant person. No, we say that they have more knowledge. Okay, they can teach, they can share, they can impart knowledge, but Allah knows their hearts. Allah knows the hearts of the believers. It may be the ignorant person has better intentions. It may be they're a pure person. It may be they're not arrogant. So we don't say the scholar's better. We don't say that. We say they have knowledge so they can impart that, and Allah knows their intentions. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Allah Ta'ala says it's only people of knowledge who fear Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. The more you know of Allah Ta'ala, the more you can fear Him. Knowledge, in order to worship, you need to know how to worship. If you want to make wudu, for example, you can't just guess. If you want to pray, you can't just guess. So you have to have knowledge of how to do those things, and then you can apply your knowledge, and it's through that you're expressing that you fear Allah Ta'ala. You're demonstrating, I fear you, Allah, I'm following your commands, I'm staying away from that which you prohibited. يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات. So Allah raises those of you who believe and those who have been given knowledge. Even if you, as we said, we look in the world, that we see doctors, engineers, they've been raised above other people in their respective areas of expertise. Why? Because they have the knowledge. I couldn't just go build a house if I wanted to. I'd have to go to a professional. I couldn't go and make a car. These people have knowledge, so I go to them. And a lot of the time with our religion, people, they kind of want to reinvent the wheel. Let's just go back to square one. I've got the Quran, I've got the Hadith, I'm gonna do everything myself. So why don't you do that in other areas of your life? Why don't you, go and study medicine every time you have an illness? Why do you, study engineering when you want to build a house? Why don't you study mechanics if you want to fix your car? So again, we observe these things in the world, but not when it comes to our religion. Allah raises those who have been given knowledge above others. There are also some prophetic narrations that speak about or refer to the merits of seeking knowledge. Allah He says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a hadith narrated by al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim, "Man yurid lahu bi khairin yufaqihuhu fi din." The one who Allah wants good for, He gives them understanding in the religion. If you find yourself inclined to seeking knowledge, if you find yourself in gatherings of knowledge, it's a sign that Allah Ta'ala wants good for you, because it's hoped that you're of those who He speaks of in this hadith. That those He wants good for, He gives them understanding in the religion. There's a hadith narrated by Imam Tirmidhi and Imam Abu Dawood, in which he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the one whoever travels a path of seeking knowledge, whoever travels a path of seeking knowledge, Allah will make easy for him his path to paradise. Seeking knowledge is a gateway to paradise. If you seek knowledge, Allah will make it easy for you to attain paradise. It says that the angels lower their wings for the seeker of knowledge. When you attend a gathering of knowledge, the angels have their wings out for you, out of pleasure for what that person, he or she, is seeking, and seeking that knowledge. The hadith goes on, it says, those in the heavens and in the earth, the very fish in the water, ask Allah to forgive the one who is endowed, so one who's been given sacred knowledge. Now again, these haqa'iq, these metaphorical, figurative uses of speech are abundant in our tradition. The fish seeking forgiveness. Imagine that. astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. Obviously, you know, there's something deeper there. There's something deeper than the fish. The hadith goes on. It says the superiority of a learned Muslim over a devotee, so one who just worships, is like that of the superiority of the moon over the stars. So the one who knows and worships and the one who doesn't know and worships is like the difference between the moon and the stars. On the 13th, 14th and 15th of the Hijri calendar, you see the full moon. Now what do the stars look like in contrast of the moon? And that's how he compared Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, those who know and those who don't know. The hadith goes on. It goes on and he says, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the learned, the scholars are the heirs of the prophets. The learned, the scholars are the heirs of the prophets. The prophets have not bequeathed, okay, they didn't leave behind dinar wala dirham. They didn't leave behind wealth. Prophets didn't leave behind wealth, money. But they only left behind sacred knowledge. And whoever takes from this has an enormous share. So knowledge, the prophetic inheritance, when you are sitting in a gathering of knowledge, you are taking from that blessed inheritance. In the world, how much do people fight over? They can, not all the time, but they can fight over inheritance. Who wants the house? Who wants the car? Who wants this? Who wants that? But why aren't we fighting over seeking knowledge? Why aren't we competing? Because this is the most noble and the most blessed and the greatest of things one can inherit is sacred knowledge. There's another hadith narrated by Imam Tirmidhi in which he says, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, فقيه واحد أشد على الشيطان من ألف عابد. One faqih, or one person with knowledge, is harder for on the devil than 1,000 worshippers. Meaning that the shaitan whispers, the shaitan manipulates, the shaitan deceives, he lies. Now the one who doesn't have knowledge, is easy for the shaitan to misguide this person. It's easy to play with this person. Unfortunately, there's some brothers and maybe sisters that are affected with waswas, for example, when they're making wudu. You know, they wash their face 10 times or wash their arms 10 times, or they're praying, and you see people like this. And obviously there may be more than one reason, of course, but one reason why is because that person doesn't have the requisite knowledge. Firstly, it's makruh, dislike to waste water, and some scholars say haram to actually waste water. If the person who was muwaswas, who has these whispers, knew that, they wouldn't be wasting water. If they knew they didn't need to do that, it's enough just to once if you want to. The point being is that the one who doesn't have knowledge, shaitan can play with this person, he can manipulate them, he can deceive them. And the one who does know, it's much more difficult for the shaitan to do that. So the one who's learned, the one who's intellectually balanced and spiritually, shaitan can't manipulate this person. And if you look at society now, a lot of the problems we're experiencing, which goes back to the worry Shafi'i had of this kind of haphazard, ad hoc way of understanding the religion, connects to this hadith in that the shaitan, mashallah, is having a field day. The shaitan's loving it. Look what's happening. The breakdown of our homes, our communities, and a lot of this is because people don't have the requisite knowledge to defend themselves, to protect themselves against the devil. Some of the ideas now that are being propagated in society, you couldn't even dream of them. Yet these ideas are coming to the forefront. Now, if Muslims are grounded intellectually and we could refute these ideas in an intellectual way, the shaitan wouldn't be playing with us as he is playing with our community now. So knowledge is very much a shield against the shaitan. Knowledge is a shield against the shaitan. And all of these ayahs and hadiths, Imam Nawawi mentions them in his book Al-Majmu'. He goes on to mention, rahimahullah, a saying of Ali bin Abi Talib. Ali bin Abi Talib famously said that the religious scholar is greater in reward than the fighter in the way of Allah who fasts the day and the night. So the mujahid who goes to fight in the path of Allah, he's fasting he's fighting, he's praying. The one who seeks knowledge, the scholar, has more reward than that person. And this is acquainting us with the lofty station of the scholars and the students of knowledge. Abu Darda, the Sahabi, said, teaching sacred knowledge for a brief time is better than spending the whole night in prayer. Again, the loftiness, the unique gift of sacred knowledge is that it can be superior than praying or saying subhanallah or doing extra acts of worship. Sufyan al-Thawri and Shafi'i said that there is nothing after what is obligatory. There's nothing better after that than seeking sacred knowledge. And just to close, what type of knowledge is obligatory? So we have knowledge that is obligatory upon every single individual. Fard ayn. So everyone has to know how to make wudu, no exception. Everyone has to know how to pray, no exception. Everyone has to know how to pay the zakat if they have enough to pay. Everyone has to know how to perform the hajj if they have enough money to go on hajj. Everyone has to know how to the rights and obligations of marriage. So your wife, your rights over your wife, and your wife's rights over you. The rights over your children, their rights over you. This is obligatory because if you have a wife, if you have children, if you have a business, for example, you need to know how to buy, how to sell, what's halal, what's haram. Are you involving in the riba or not? So that's outwardly. Everyone has to know these things. There's no exception. Oh, sorry, brother, I didn't know how to pray. No excuse. Then there's communal obligations that a community have to perform. So a janazah prayer, for example. Not everyone has to do the janazah, okay, but some people have to. To lift the obligation of the community, some people have to perform that. Seeking knowledge to a higher level, becoming a scholar. You know, our teachers, Imam Hamid, Imam Sama, they've sought knowledge to a much higher level. That's not wajib upon everyone, but some people have to do that. Imam Nawawi mentions that sacred knowledge is superior than extra acts of worship, like fasting, making dhikr, for example. And some of the reasons he gives is that knowledge benefits the ummah. It's knowledge benefits the ummah, whereas acts of worship benefit that individual. So if you're studying, for example, to teach your children or your family or your friends or your community, everyone's going to benefit from that knowledge. Whereas an act of worship, it's just you benefiting from that. He mentions also, Imam Nawawi, that knowledge is a prerequisite to worship. You have to know how to worship, as you mentioned before, you actually involve yourself in that worship. And what we mentioned before is that seeking knowledge is a communal obligation. And there are different types of knowledge, and to be very brief, that knowledge, real knowledge, is that which is purifying. Okay, so if someone seeks knowledge to argue or to be seen, mashallah, so and so is a great scholar, that knowledge is no longer purifying. It's corrupting that individual. So when we say knowledge, seeking knowledge, we're referring to knowledge which is purifying, seeking knowledge with a good intention, with a sound heart. Okay, that kind of knowledge is a knowledge which is desirable and required for people to seek. Knowledge that guides to Allah Ta'ala, not away from it. Some scholars would say that those who increase in knowledge but don't increase in action, they only increase in distance from their Lord. So in such gatherings like this one, it's not mere enough to come and to want to seek that knowledge just because of the knowledge itself, but to seek it in order to for it to bring about a better state of affairs. Imagine, for example, someone says, I'm going to start, I'm going to read every book on exercising, watch every YouTube video, but the McDonald's, going to stay on the McDonald's, stay on the Snickers bars, stay on the milkshakes. Was that knowledge of any benefit? None whatsoever. So likewise, we come here, mashallah, we're seeking knowledge, we learn all these things, but we go home and it's, we don't even consider or contemplate on acting upon it, it's not of any benefit. So knowledge and action have to come hand in hand. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Do that. Now? Huh?
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala al-falah. Hayya ala al-falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
اللهم اجعل سريرتي خيرا من علانيتي واجعل علانيتي صالحة. We ask Allah to make our inner states beautiful, more beautiful than our outward states, make our outward states beautiful. May we benefit from these gatherings inwardly and outwardly. May these gatherings be a means of attaining closer to Allah Ta'ala and His Messenger. May the knowledge we gain guide us to Him and away from sin, and to that which is beautiful and away from that which is ugly. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make us means of guidance for this ummah, for our family, for our children, and for the whole of humanity. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.